What is up, everybody? Coop here, and today we're going to be jumping into another Divinity Original Sin mod. So, obviously it's been a hot minute, but we're starting off 2019 on a high note, and without further ado, let's jump in and check out the mod. So the mod we're going to be checking out today is the wonderful Berserker Class build made by the wonderful how do I pronounce it?
Heaphaistos.
And basically, this is going to be a really cool class. He actually gives you a sort of a nice little way of telling you how to build the playstyle, you know, different skills that it has. Even shows you where all the traders are in a nice formal manner, and all the usual spots that most people do. It's no weird spots or anything. And it has been updated for the definitive edition. So, without further ado, let's jump in. So jumping into the Berserker build, there's actually a few different character types you can choose. Human is a pretty good one, as it gives you a little bit of crit to increase your damage later on when you add a little bit of wits. But Undead I find is one of the better ones, because mainly you're going to be using a lot of lifesteal, so it's good to have some of that other stuff such as Time Warp with Feign, where you can do extra turns to really manipulate and really kind of work things out. And on top of it, you don't have to worry about poison damage as much. There's a variety of different things that are kind of helpful. The other races are kind of good as well. Dwarf, I would say, is the close second compared to the human and the undead. And then, of course, the other classes are pretty decent, but they don't play as well as the human and undead. So, I highly recommend when jumping into a Berserker class that you do one of these two. Now, the thing that it does do is it gives you the talent of Comeback Kid. And I think I relatively agree with Comeback Kid. Because of the way that the Berserker plays, with it being it to where you're very out in the open, it's very high risk, high reward. You do massive amounts of damage, but you're very susceptible to damage. I think that Comeback Kid really fits the bill here. Now, there are some people that would argue that there's other talents that are better than Comeback Kid, such as the one that reses you back to full life. Now, while I do agree with that, I do think that Comeback Kid is pretty decent, as what it does is it allows you to still be in your turn order, and then on top of that, when you are resurrected, Comeback Kid once again is available. So it allows you to where you can really manipulate it out to where, you know, you are about to die, you get Comeback Kid, then you die, then you get res back, then you can manipulate it if you're about to die, and then you can die again. So you have, basically with one resurrection scroll, you have 4 different chances of really doing some different things out there, and having that nice turn order going on. Now later on, we're obviously going to be picking up some other ones out there. I think like Leech and Hothead are pretty good, they're actually right next to each other. Just any ways of giving us a little bit extra of some different things that we can get. There's going to be a lot of bleed moves that are going to be shown in this, so definitely want to jump into that. Now, the one that it gives you right off the bat is 2 in Strength and 1 in Constitution, which, the way that this playstyle kind of works, I definitely recommend that you pretty much stay to the preset. The preset's really, really good, and it actually does its part pretty awesome. Now, if you are wondering what exactly it falls under in the sort of character customization, it does technically follow under the Warfare tree. So as you guys can see here, all the Warfare spells are right here. Now, the spells that they give you right off the bat are pretty powerful in their own different ways. So you've got Bloodlust, which basically allows you to receive 50% lifesteal, and you take a bit of piercing damage. So this is why you're going to need a little bit of health. This is why you're going to be needing some lifesteal, some necromancy, some different things out there, because what it does is it does affect you and does hurt you a little bit. Now, Fury is a special unique skill that we'll get into later on, but basically this gives you a different little level of bar here where you get 1 Fury, which reduces your magical resistance and physical resistance by 5, but increases your overall damage and your crit chance by 2. So, as I said, we're going to be building up your crit. That's why I highly recommend Feign and the humans, because we're going to be really trying to build up that crit and making it into a really powerful build to make sure that our necromancy gets off to where we can do a lot of different heals and things to really help us out. So having that Warfare to increase our overall damage, and then having necromancy to give us our little heal on the backside, which is also why we're going to have Comeback Kid, so just in case if we die, we can still make those power plays and heal ourselves right back up to full health. And in addition to getting Leech, which will make them bleed, and then we heal from the bleed. So next is Swipe. Basically, you swipe your weapon in front of you, doing a cone attack to enemies, and you set them with bleeding. Once again, making that bleed, making it to where leech is very useful in this scenario. If the target is already bleeding, it's set to wounded instead. Wounded increases the skills and item cost by 1 action point and reduce the lifesteal by 30%, but also deal 2 to 3 piercing damage each turn. So, pretty good there. Next is Throw Axe, which basically, this is really awesome, especially for a melee-based character. It's just awesome to have sort of a ability that has a bit of a range. So this basically just deals some physical damage. It also applies cracked armor, which reduces the physical resistance by 15. So this is something that can actually go past the armor. If you break armor again with another skill, instead it gets destroyed armor, which basically gives it 60% less of a physical resistance. So this is a way of actually breaking armor and breaking down that reduction and making it to where they actually take some massive damage. And I really, really like that. And it also gives you Fury as well. So, you know, you can manipulate all these different skills and stuff to do a lot of really good, strong combos. It's all about setting up the stuff, and yes, you're more susceptible to getting more damage, but you're also giving these awesome status effects that are very quite unique that can really do some massive damage. So, really interesting, unique class that has a lot of potential that almost is like its own like skill tree in itself. It plays very similar to Warfare, but it has enough uniqueness to really do some cool things. So let's jump in and actually check out these skills. Alright, so jumping into all the actual skills that this class has, there's actually a decent amount. There's a really good amount of different skills here that you have to offer, as you guys can see here. In addition to that, they also have one ability that uses a source point, so that's really awesome as well. Also, in addition to that, you really don't have to go outside of the class as a whole. You can really kind of just stick to Warfare and be able to get all the skills that you really require. Now, when I started playing this, and when I was looking at all the different things, I definitely highly recommend that you guys pick up Leech and on top of that Hothead along the way, as the crit will be very helpful for you, and in addition to that, the accuracy. Also, because of the amount of bleeds that happen, Leech actually is relatively useful in this scenario, so I highly recommend picking that up as well. There's a few other ones in there as well that you can pick, but it's really up to you. I know Executioner is a crowd favorite, along with Pitcher of Health. So there's a few different options you can really pick when going out there. I mainly focus on putting points into Strength, a few points into Constitution, and then I started focusing on Wits. So that way I got myself up to almost 20% crit, and then when eventually I pick up more stuff along the way, I'll be able to have more Wits, to do more crits, to do more damage, to get more heals. So basically, in general, that's something that you really want to focus on when jumping into the class before we jump into skills here. So, what exactly do we have skill-wise? So, obviously, we've already talked about Blood Loss, which gives you basically this little Fury thing. So, I'll show you here. Basically, it gives you Fury, which, you know, you slowly take some piercing damage, but in addition to that, you also have Lifesteal. So, I wanted to see how long the actual Fury and, like, stuff kind of lasts, and it actually lasts for about 3 turns usually. So that's something to keep in mind. Now the next one is Short Leap, which basically allows you to jump, and it makes them have Unbalanced, which basically just makes it to where they have a chance of knockdown. So that one's really awesome, and it gives you also Fury as well. So it's another ability that you can use to jump around the battlefield. I like it because it kind of reminds me of Spread Your Wings, but it allows you, in Phoenix Dive, but it allows you to travel across the battlefield, which is something that a lot of melee-based classes don't typically have. So that's very helpful for us as well. Swipe, of course, is still just a normal cone. I noticed that it's a smaller cone compared to most abilities that have sort of a frontwards cone, but I kind of like that. I don't like it when some of the melee-based skills were able to hit all the way from here to this bucket. So it's good to see that there is just a smaller cone for a more realistic playstyle. Throw Axe is still pretty good. I mean, as you can see, the range on this is kind of ridiculous sometimes, if I can actually. So as you can see, it's kind of ridiculous, but I do like that. I think it's pretty awesome to have that ability there. Next is Berserker Whirlwind, which basically allows you to just do a whirlwind. But this whirlwind is a little bit different. What it does is you then continue to spin, dealing more damage every turn. So that's just something really cool. So if I were to be over here, we can actually look at what this unique thing is here. So you spin, you spin, you spin, you spin. So as you can see, you just keep spinning. So it's really kind of interesting to look at. And then as you can see here, we got our Fury. So, really interesting. Next is Calm Down, which is an ancestral sort of technique to reduce your Fury to 0 for 2 turns, which means you can no longer gain the Fury stack, but it also consumes all of your Fury to be able to heal yourself. So this is an alternative way of healing. So this is really awesome, especially because if you're just trying to get a quick heal, you just do that, and then you're able to get your nice heals. And it even scales up. So, as you guys can see there, it scales based off of your stuff. Now, there is some things that are a little bit weak, because, for example, if you actually look at it here, like, yeah, it's kind of nice, because, like, level 1 heals for 36, blah, blah, blah. But it doesn't scale exactly correctly. There's sometimes where the numbers don't scale up on the higher levels. So I'm hoping that they maybe fix that a little bit. So time will tell. We'll definitely see. I just noticed that there's been like some glitches I've had in the past with it. Now Devastating Blow is awesome because what it allows you to do is jump and slice for a target, dealing some massive damage, but also they explode and deal huge damage to enemies around. So that's bleeding on the target. If not, it gets wounded, which we already know what wounded does. So does some great damage and also reduces the lifesteal by 30%. But it's still a really powerful ability. And it also does Devastated. But basically this is just an alternative way of jumping over to a corpse and just making it just explode. So that's a really awesome ability over there. So let's jump into some of the other ones here that we got. So we've got a few different ones here. One of the things I do like about this class is that it is mainly just 1 cost stuff. There's not a lot of 2 cost things, which some guides get like really annoying with. They try to make ultimate abilities, and I mean they're cool and all, but they don't do exactly all that much. So enemy throw is where you get to grab a target and just toss them in any direction. So as you can see here, I can just toss this item. So I kind of found that as like a funny ability, but I never understood why that wasn't a melee ability. Because yeah, just grabbing someone and then tossing them is actually relatively in a good sort of way of gameplay wise. So it really helped out there. Headbutt basically allows you to sort of run at and attack a target. So basically dealing damage and knocking them down. So it is resisted by physical damage, so that's something to keep in mind. Now there has been some glitches with this. Some people have not been able to use it in certain scenarios. They'll be in combat. I haven't personally used it. I kind of felt like there's other abilities out there that do the same thing, that don't give you that Fury stack, but it does basically work the same way as like a normal charge-based ability. Next is Pulverize, which basically makes it to where you do a heavy amount of damage and you destroy part of their armor. So it does the same thing as that one ability that we looked at, where basically it just destroys part of their armor and making it to where you can do some massive deeps. Punishing Strike, which basically makes you dash at the target, strike them with some massive damage, sets bleeding, sets wounded instead. So that's just another way of getting across the battlefield. So as you can see, the Berserker class really can get around and jump around all the different areas. Warpaint, which basically you use the blood of the body, and then what you do is it increases your movement speed. Your basic attacks also deal additional damage. On top of that, your critical attacks deal 50% more damage. So now you guys can kind of see why a crit build is really a good idea, because you can really do some massive deeps and get some massive health back. Now this one also is another jump ability, which basically does the same thing where it destroys their armor. So as you can see here, you can really jump around and destroy the armor like a crap ton. Frenzy, which basically you do a swift attack, and each time Frenzy Strike is used, you gain an improved version of it, increasing the damage by 5%, and the number of strike by 1. However, what this does is it does increase the level of your fury. So, another thing to keep in mind too is that it does have a cooldown of 6. So, if I were to use it, so cool, I got Frenzy Strike 2. Boom. And as you can see, you can just keep going. And going and going and going. And doing it again. But as you can see, I'm getting up to like high levels, but it does hit a maximum at 5. So just keep that in mind, especially when trying to do your build, especially going forward. But just wanted to show you guys like the whole cooldown thing and how it isn't actually what it says that it is. So the last ones we have here is Menacing Look, where basically you stare at an enemy and give them an intimidating look, reducing their movement speed and reducing their dodge, and on top of that, their damage. So, pretty good ability. Titanic Slam, which basically just makes a shockwave in front of you. This one has actually pretty good range. It goes pretty far. So, that's pretty nice. Just a basic ability that just gets powerful with your strength. And the final ability besides the source base ability, which basically is Warcry, which increases all your resistances by 75%. So this is a good one dealing with those magical base bastards. And basically it helps out all the allies around you too. So as you can see, it has a good range as well for that. And the last ultimate ability is pretty basic, but it is a really cool ability. It basically does a massive amount of damage to your targets with a powerful slash. But if the target is at 15 or below life, you automatically kill it. Now, I have used this on some different bosses, and it does, in fact, work with even bosses. So all you have to do is get them to a low amount of life, and you're able to just hit them, and they're done. Now, keep in mind, though, that it does have resistance to physical armor. So that is definitely something to keep into sort of mind when you're doing this. So anyways, guys, that was the look at the Berserker class. I hope you do enjoy that. Now, my comments when jumping into the Berserker class is it's a really good class for doing a lots of damage, but one of the biggest issues I had personally while using it was I found that it was really good in a party setting, but not so good against magical users. The second you saw a magical user, you'd have to be afraid and be very scared of them, as if you weren't the one that get up to them first, you were probably the one that was going to die first. So that was definitely something that I know when jumping in there, but I kind of like that. I kind of like have it when classes have sort of a huge disadvantage, but a huge advantage in many other ways. So I definitely found that to be really interesting, especially when I was doing a lot of my combat-based testing and things going forward. Frenzy Strike was an amazing ability, especially when you partner it up with high crit. But in addition to that, guys, I was pretty happy with this mod. I wanted to show you guys out there because it has a really great sort of roleplay mechanic in the way that it actually plays out character-wise. I found it really interesting, and one that has, you know, a huge weakness but also huge strength, and it's at that point where it's exaggerated so much to where it's balanced game-wise, and I really enjoyed that. And I just wanted to kind of show you guys that awesome mod as well. Now there's going to be more mods to come, guys. I know I've been a little bit slow on the uploads, but basically what my general goal here is to make it to where every week there will be a Divinity Original Sin mod at least shown, or maybe I'll jump in and do some boss guides in between. If you guys have any personal mods you want me to check out, or personal builds that you want me to try, put them in the comments below. I'll be sure to do them for you guys. Anyways, like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time.